Okay, so you're looking at making the move from California to Florida. Look, in this video, I'm going to cover everything you need to know if you're considering moving from California to Florida. And be warned, politics exposed. I am going to let everything loose and let you know what I experienced from moving from California to Florida. And stay to the end, you might learn something that probably will keep you from wanting to move here all together. Let's go. What's up, everyone? My name is Cameron Hodge, coming at you from eXp Realty here in Orlando, Florida. On this channel, I talk about making the move to and living in Orlando, Florida, dropping videos every single week. But while I love bringing you these videos to help you decide whether to move to Florida or Orlando, I love even more being a licensed real estate agent here in Florida is helping you make the move to Florida. This number popping up below is how you can get a hold of me. Call, text, email. Does not matter how you get a hold of us. We are here to help you when making that move or answer your questions on whether it would even be a fit for you. All right, getting into the video. Should you move to Florida in 2022? Look, there's a lot of chaos going on in the world, a lot of things going on, and if this is your first time coming to the channel, I'm going to let you know again that obviously before coming to Orlando, we lived in San Diego, California, and I've hopped around between there. I've also lived near Fresno during my time in the military, and I'm originally from New York State, so I'm definitely not oblivious to living in crazy expensive states. So, I will say that it is definitely a loaded question because everyone has a different situation, a different story as to why they want to move from California and go to Florida or like whatever situations. And this is just going to be a broad topic of really whether you should or shouldn't make the move out here, some of the differences and things that would probably catch you off guard when making that move out here. So I think one of the biggest things that cuts people off guard, especially since my wife was born and raised in Southern California, and that's the weather. So obviously coming from California, one of the things you're going to notice is the fact that, hey, like the weather's always like sunny in California. It just is. But it also is why utilities and water can be so expensive because we have to bring it across state lines when living there. Now, coming to Florida, you'll notice that one is the humidity. It's going to catch you off guard if you're not used to that dry heat. Even living on the Pacific Ocean, the humidity is like nowhere near what it is on the East Coast. So it's one of the things that catches people off guard completely. And I've run into a lot of people from California that seem to only be able to visit Florida during the summer months, which is going to be the hottest, muggiest, wettest months of the year. I think it's good that you come experience Florida during those months because I tell you it could be a deal breaker for you. Now, if you're living at home with AC, depending what you do for work, maybe it's not going to be an issue and you're just like, look, I'm just going to tolerate it during that time. But for a lot of people, it really catches you off guard. But I will tell you during the winter months, you can really see why people live in Florida because the weather becomes a lot more beautiful than it is during those muggy summer months. Also, keep in mind during the summer months, like it might be nice in the morning, but guaranteed by 1 to 4 in the afternoon, you're going to be having a rainstorm, thunderstorm. It's just everyday life. And don't forget the hurricanes. Obviously in California, everyone's waiting for the big one, the big earthquake. Well, here in Florida, hurricanes are a recurring occurrence in the state. So you have to understand that depending where you live in Florida, it's going to be a bigger issue. Now, obviously, when it comes to Central Florida, especially like Tampa, Orlando, things like that, well, Tampa is on the coast. Orlando especially, we are literally like almost smack dab in the center of the state. So we're not on the ocean like maybe Miami would be or Jacksonville, and kind of, it can shelter you from that nasty hurricane weather, which is why it becomes such a more opportune spot to live when moving out to Florida. Not to mention, like, obviously I'm a little biased. I love Central Florida. I think out of being in the multiple places in the state, it's one of the places I love most. It just fits my vibe. It fits who I want to be around and what we want to do as a family. Now, aside from weather, I think obviously like coming from California, most likely, unless you're coming from like middle of nowhere in the north, you're probably going to run into a situation where the cost of living is going to be a lot less on the surface. What I mean by that is obviously coming from, let's say, Southern California, great example, or even like San Francisco, LA, San Diego, like the first thing you're going to notice is like the average home price is half of what it is on average in the Golden State. And I can tell you that that's the biggest thing. But keep in mind, between insurance costs and also other normal home upkeeps like taxes and things like that, what you'll run into is the fact that the barrier to entry is lower, meaning home prices are lower. But it doesn't mean it's like a knock out of the park. What I tell people is that generally speaking, like you are getting ahead when it comes to going to Florida. Like if you're buying a condo in California, you're probably a good shot. If you can qualify for that same amount in Florida, you're going to be getting a single family residence, sometimes with a pool. So, and obviously it depends on your budget, right? Like $1 million in California is widely different than $1 million here in Florida. So it's keeping in mind that if you were able to qualify for even a condo in California, good chance you're probably going to qualify for a single family residence here in Florida, even at the current inflated prices. Now, going into prices, what a lot of people don't understand is that, obviously it's not the cheap, Florida's not the cheap place it used to be. Now, that being said, if you're avoiding Jacksonville, Tampa, Orlando, Miami, Pensacola, if you're going to like those rural areas, yes, it's going to be even cheaper than it would be in these metropolitan areas. But you need to keep in mind that I think most of us, when we move here, you're probably moving to an area that's a major city. So you're not going to be getting that huge, cheap area to live in like you would expect. That being said, one thing I do love about Florida, and I've had tons of people disagree with me with this, is the fact that you can still find opportunities, right? Like, here's a good example in San Diego, right? Like, there used to be a time in San Diego where you could live in the city and travel to like Temecula in Southern Riverside. Say it's an hour from the airport, give or take. And you could find like a way cheaper residence. That's not the case anymore. Homes in Temecula are still around like $650,000 to $700,000 for an average home price. So it's like even in San Diego and California, like you're having to live in the middle of nowhere that probably doesn't even have a job for you to actually be able to afford a full home. And it's freaking annoying. Let's be honest. Here in Florida, while it's not like I said, it's not like a knock out of a park like it used to be. It's not a home run. It's not like this crazy cheap state like it used to be. But there are, when you look at an hour of travel time, I promise you there's options within your budget. Now, does it mean it's a perfect scenario for where you should or want to live? No, it doesn't. But the point is that if you want a home and that's why you're coming to Florida, like, Cameron, I don't care where I live. I'll move a couple years in the future. When I get there, I want my own home. I mean, we have a client that's looking at coming to Orlando, and even she was like in a position where like, you couldn't qualify for anything in California, but all of a sudden you come out to Florida and you're like, hey, I can get a home. I can get a home with like at least 3 to 4 bedrooms. So like my family has enough room to stay. Yeah, that still exists here. Obviously, it all depends on what you make. And that also is another thing to think about, is depending what your job is in California, it might not be the same income coming to Florida. Now, I will tell you, a lot of companies are maintaining very, very competitive wages and salaries here in Florida. But again, it depends on what you do for work. While I've talked to people, their job is relocating them, or they got the exact same position and same pay or greater in this state. There are a lot of people who just do not make that much more. Keep in mind, minimum wage is not the $15 an hour that it is in California. It's not. It's substantially lower. And you need to understand that, there's a good chance that your wages could be lower. So make sure you take that into account when coming out of here. Also, little hidden fact here before moving on. Leaving California is substantially more expensive for moving costs than moving to California. These moving companies, I don't care whether it's U-Haul, I don't care if it's self-storage, pods, any of them, it doesn't matter. They know what they're doing, and they get their money from the mass majority of people that are leaving that state. I mean, I like to call it a cesspool. I hate what they've done with that state. But I realize that, hey, it's just going to cost you a lot more, from a couple grand all the way up to double the price, depending on what level of service you were looking to do when moving out here. I think that's something that caught me off guard. And I was like, what the heck? Why is it so more expensive to leave this state? Companies know what they're doing. Not to mention the crazy fuel costs, that the average fuel cost in the United States and how that's going up. It's crazy. Now, moving on, one thing I think you really need to consider when moving out to Florida is you need to understand is the political situation. So California is its own beast, they have a lot of free services between healthcare and school programs and things like that. But keep in mind that also gets put on the taxpayer. So it kind of is why taxes tend to be higher there. But they have a lot of those programs. Weed's legal. Guns are super restrictive. One of the most restrictive gun states in the country, and all those things. When you come to Florida, a lot of those things are out the window. Now, I will tell you, if it in terms of maybe mortgage assistance and things like that, there's still good plans here in Florida. I'd say they're about equal with catches and things like that. What they require you to do in that situation, but they exist here. But keep in mind, when you're coming to Florida, a lot of the hot topics that everyone wants to be complaining about or getting really involved in from the Supreme Court recently, hey, a lot of those things aren't here. Also, keep in mind, like guns, like concealed carry is still one of those things that's getting pushed through to be constitutional carry, which means you don't need a permit to carry. Hasn't passed this year, but it's also something that's in the budget, but like on the agenda in the coming years for Florida. But people can conceal carry here, so it's really relatively easy to get a permit. Going through like the background checks and all that stuff, a pretty straightforward process, unlike California, to conceal carry. So keep in mind, like I met people that are like, oh my gosh, I think so-and-so carries a gun every day. It's like, yeah, this is what people do. You know, I'm not saying in the cities and stuff like that, no, you're probably not going to run into everyone that does it. But hey, personally, if you're like me, I think it's a great thing. I love it. It's one of our Second Amendment rights, and I think it's one of the great things why we moved to Florida originally. Because, hey, I believe it's what I should be allowed to do, and that's one of the things I really hated about California when the military brought me out there originally. But I think people need to be aware of that. Also, weed, medically accepted, it is not for recreational use. I don't care about it. It's not something we cared about, but if that's something you care about, be aware that, hey, it's only for medicinal use. It is not recreational in this state. It is not like the Midwest. So be aware that those things are different. You know, like California, I like to say it's like its own little country over there with a lot of the rules and laws that it has in place. And when you move to Florida, it could be a major change for a lot of people. And the biggest thing is making sure you don't make a move here just to find out, like you didn't realize about this stuff to get here and realize, oh my God, I hate this. I hate like all of these things. Hey, if it's not for you, don't even bother coming. Straight up. But I think if you're watching this, you already know about a lot of these things and you're okay with that. And you're like me and my family. We were like, look, we were done with this. Like we were living in a condo in San Diego that when we sold it, we couldn't even rebuy it if we wanted to, because that's how much it appreciated because of, in the beginning of COVID there. And it's at the point where we were like, this is not where we want our kids to grow up in. Like it's crazy expensive. Like we don't feel safe. We're just paying for everything, tax on everything. It's just increasing and increasing and increasing. What's changing, honestly? So that's why we moved to Florida and realized that that's something you're going to have to come to terms with. Because that being said, like, it's realize why you're leaving and don't be coming to Florida trying to make it exactly like California. There's a reason why you left. So be aware of that. Now, on the flip side, I also love to tell people that coming to a different state, I think for those of us that have been in the military or changed states a lot, you realize that like you can't just avoid all your problems coming to a new state. So realize that while Florida might have more freedom and a lot more options for you, it does not mean your problems will not follow you. So you need to be aware of that. Also, when you go to move, hey, like you'd be surprised on the family issues that come up, to where if you're like mother-in-law or something like that, or like, other family are close to your kids and stuff like that, like it makes it a lot harder being across the country. One thing I love about Orlando is being such a tourist city, the cost of flights are a lot cheaper than they would be in a lot of other airports. So it's a huge blessing for us when we moved here, because we can budget in flying out her mom and things like that to come visit the kids and really kind of keep that family life together. Or if we still want to go over there and visit, which we do, it's something that's more easily in our budget. I mean, I grew up in Western New York, and I can tell you flying out of Buffalo, it's like over $1,000 a ticket, I swear. Like I think it's a little bit cheaper than it used to be now, but flying to San Diego, like it was always so expensive when I would go home to visit. So thankfully in Florida, a lot of the airports are tourist heavy, so it's a great opportunity to be able to afford seeing family or having family come visit you. So Florida overall, I think it's an amazing place, but realize it's not for everyone. Alligators. Is it a thing? Yes, it's a thing. But honestly, if you're living in the suburbs, you're probably never going to really see them anyways. Maybe if you do, it's a freak occurrence. Like they're everywhere, but it's not like you see them everywhere. It really depends on where you're living. At the same time, don't just go to any random lake and channel and just like jump in without, you know what I mean? Like think ahead. Like even like the lake in Disney like 10 years ago, they pulled out like, I don't know, I think it was like over 100 alligators. Crazy. So keep in mind, it's Florida, they're here, and a lot of wildlife will try and kill you. It's just a fact. So be aware of that when it comes to going in nature and doing those things. Like anything, it's like make sure you talk to locals. I think one of the greatest things that coming here that you'll probably notice from California is people are way more friendly in the South than they are in California. I mean, I always like to tell people, when we took a road trip out to Florida, when we initially did a discovery trip, discovered where we wanted to live in Central Florida, went through all that process that you probably are in right now, is when we drove back to California after making our plans and to start tying loose ends up in California. As soon as I breached San Diego County, there was like no traffic and someone still cut me off and flipped me off. So, you know, I can tell you that I've even the Airbnb we rented in Florida, I had like an hour-long conversation with a neighbor. Just like they were from Canada and they just wanted to like, oh, well, you're moving out here. That's so cool. Like I can tell you that in California, like in the multiple places we lived, like people were, I say like come home, close the garage door type of people. Like most people just do not, there's no community. But coming here to Florida, like I can promise you there's probably a community that fits your needs. So you just have to find it. You have to make sure you choose where you want to live. Think about like the finances getting over here, but realize it's more of a bigger picture. If you have kids, are the schools good that for your needs? Just making sure that everything lines up to make sure that it fits your needs. And if you are looking to make the move to Orlando or even Tampa and you need some help in that decision or where you should look at when it comes to living, this number popping up below is how you can get a hold of me and the team. This is what we do. Heck, even if you're just coming to Florida in general, reach out. We have members of our team in every single city here in Florida, and I love helping people relocate out here because I'm really passionate about it. It's what we do. We specialize in this because, hey, you're not alone when it comes to moving to the state. A lot of people are doing it, and making sure that you make the right choices when coming out here can make or break your life when coming out here. So I hope you got value in this video. I hope it gave you a better idea of whether you should or should not move to Florida, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.